Welcome to part 5 and our unit related to global prehistory. We're going to continue looking at some sculpture. What you're looking at in front of you right now is a very exquisite and exceedingly rare sculpture discovered in a cave in the early 1960s. This was made more than 3,500 years ago, and it's one of the earliest known Pacific works of art. So we're actually traveling to the Pacific, and we are in New Guinea. Um, Ancient stone mortars and pestles from New Guinea are often fashioned into the form of birds, humans, and animals. However, the ambum stone is on a higher sculptural level than other prehistoric pedestals and have a great level of figurative detail. When the process in producing the Abim stone is taken into consideration, it is all the more magnificent. Working with the tough gray wax stone, that's the kind of stone that was used, would have involved many weeks of laborious chipping and hammering at the surface with the stone tool. And you can really see they've really achieved this very smooth surface. And then also it's very rounded and it's very lyrical and curved. It's quite beautiful. So this is some sort of composite creature. It kind of looks animalistic, but it also has some human characteristics as well. Despite the various animalistic features, such as the nose tip, and some scholars think that this resembles a fruit bat, the ambum stone may depict what's called a juvenile longed beak enchadna. It's a type of spiny anteater, an animal thought to have been revered for its useful fat deposits prior to the introduction of pigs. So, as a food source, this would have been of high, you know, nutritional value. Also, they used fat in order to burn oil and to light lamps as well. So it was, it would make sense again when we saw with the caves at Lascaux. Um, these depictions of animals obviously were meant. Maybe, I mean, we're deducting this. This isn't a we aren't for sure, but this might have been a sign of respect for these creatures, and that even though they were being hunted or eaten, that the people understood their importance and their survival. The significance and function of the ambum stone remains obscure, as little is known about the people who produced this work. Um, such objects are often considered sacred and credited with supernatural powers by present day people in the region. So people who live in the region today, who have found these objects, sort of associate them with these kind of supernatural beliefs, um, where they are used as spirit stones in sorcery and other rituals. So they've actually, the current people today that have found them have actually sort of appropriated them into their culture and sort of are now using them in their rituals. On some of our corn flaking methods, and I think the style, again, it has this intense use of subtractive sculpting. So here it probably was kind of a rounded piece of stone to begin with, and you can sort of see how the artist has sort of used the shape and has been able to subtract and carve out some of the stone. And again, this freestanding neck and this elaborate nose is very skillful. I mean, this could easily break off. Um, and you know, in terms of context, again, because this animal was probably revered by people, um, it obviously had some sort of ritual significance. Some other ideas that have been proposed by other scholars is that it perhaps maybe represented a human that was wearing a mask. Some people have said it looks like an anteater embryo in a fetal position. Anteaters, again, were thought of as significant because of their fat deposits. And it, obviously was some sort of pestle. You can sort of see here where maybe some herbs or pigments would have been grounded up in here. So that's what a pestle is, a mortar and pestle. You've seen sort of like these like chemists or apothecaries, they'll grind up medicines and anyway, you get the point. And despite some of these interpretations, again, it probably had some sort of ritual purpose and sacred meaning behind it. So we're going to travel to central New Mexico. I love these figures. I think these are so lively and very charming to look at. They're called Plectilico figurines, and they're these wonderful small ceramic figures. They're often of women, and they are found in central Mexico. This is the region of the later and much better known Aztec Empire, and we will be studying them as well later in the course. But the people of Tilico flourished 2,000 to 3,000 years before the Aztecs came to power in this valley. Although Plectilico was already settled by the early preclassical period, most scholars believe that many figurines date from the middle preclassical period, or about 12,000 to 400 BCE. Their intimate, lively poses and elaborate hairstyles are indicative of the already sophisticated artistic tradition. This is remarkable given the early dates. Ceramic figures of any sort were widespread for only a few centuries before the appearance of the Plectilico figurines. So these were found in the first half of the 20th century. A great number of graves were found by brickmakers mining clay in the area. These brickmakers would often sell the objects, many of them figurines, that came out of these graves to interested collectors. Later, archaeologists were able to dig a number of complete burials, and they too found a wealth of objects buried with the dead. So that's something that we've seen across the globe, that it wasn't unusual for objects to be buried with the with people's deceased ancestors, and so a lot of these objects that have been buried again might have served some sort of ritual purpose. Um, the objects that were found in the largest quantities and that enchanted many collectors and scholars of ancient Mexico were these Plectilico ceramic figurines, and I think you can see why. I mean, when you look up close, I mean, just the style, the sort of simplicity and stylized, and then also this sort of double face, and the elaborate hairstyle. It's just very charming. So we'll look at the appearance a little bit more and perhaps talk about the significance. The Plectilico figurines, this one is at Princeton University in their art museum, has several traits that directly relate to other Plectilico female figurines. The emphasis on the wide hips, go back, the spherical upper thighs, and the pinched waist. So again, sort of elaborating perhaps on sort of the fertility of the female figure. And then there's also this, sort of no interest in showing or depicting the hands and the feet. And it's very similar to the Willendorf female figurine that we looked at the very beginning of this unit. So here's that image, and I think you can sort of see some definite similarities. So it's interesting because this was found, this figure's obviously much older, but this was found in Europe, while the other figurine was found in the Americas. We'll get back to the Pactilico figure. Artists treated the hairstyles with great care and detail, suggesting that it was hair and its styling that was important for the people of Pactilico, as it was for many people in this region. This figurine not only shows an elaborate hairstyle, but shows the sort of two connected heads on a single body. We have other two-headed female figures from Pactilico, but they are rare when compared with the figurines that show a single head. So here's an example of another Plectilico figurine. I love this one because she's holding a dog, and If anyone knows me, I love dogs. I'll start talking anyway. Anything that has a dog in it, I adore. So again, quite different. These are more common, whereas the sort of dual face is more rare. So it's very difficult to know exactly why the artist depicted a, a bicephalic, and that means two-headed figure, as opposed to the normal single head. Again, as we have no documents or other aids that would help us define the meaning. And again, we can kind of come up with some theories. It may be that the people of Plactilico were interested in expressing an idea of duality, as many scholars have argued. So we're going to look at the craftsmanship of some of these figures. Unlike some later Mexican figurines, those of the Plactilico were made exclusively by hand without relying on molds. It's important to think then about the consistent mastery shown by the artists of many of these figurines. The main forms were created through pinching the clay and then shaping it by hand, while some of the details were created by a sharp instrument cutting linear motifs onto the wet clay. The forms of the body were depicted in a specific proportion that, while not naturalistic, was striking and effective. The artist was given a very small space. Most of these figures are less than 15 centimeters high, so they're quite small, in which to create these elaborate hairstyles. Even for today's viewer, the details in this area are very fascinating. Again, people just get so caught up in the hair and um, some of the decorations. Um, the pieces also have a nice finish and the paint, and they were also painted. And this must have indicated some sort of body decoration that we can see that might have been applied. And we also have this wonderful addition of the dog figure as well. And again, this is showing you that this is Neolithic because, you know, we have this domestication of animals going on at the time. Of art that we're going to be studying. This is a terracotta fragment from Lapita, the Solomon Islands. Um, and the term Lapita refers to an ancient Pacific culture that archaeologists believe to be the common ancestors of the contemporary cultures of Polynesia and Micronesia and some areas of Melanesia. The culture takes its name from the site of Lapita in New Caledonia. It was one of the first places in which its distinctive pottery was discovered. While archaeologists debate the precise region where the Lapita culture itself developed, the ancestors of the Lapita people came originally from Southeast Asia, beginning around 1500 BCE. Lapita peoples began to spread eastward through the island of Melanesia and into the remote archipelagos, I'm saying that wrong, of the central and eastern Pacific, reaching Tonga and Samoa roughly by 1000 BCE. The Lapita were a seafaring people who settled primarily on the coast rather than inland, and their skilled navigators traversed the ocean with the east. Lapita artists are best known for their ceramics, which feature intricate repeating geometric patterns. So I think you can see that here. The patterns were incised into the pots before firing with a comb-like tool, and also some of these might have been stamped, like some sort of stamp might have been used to design or pushed into the wet clay to create some of these patterns. Each stamp consisted of a single design element that was combined with others to form an elaborate pattern. So again, this is something very, very sophisticated. So they would have these stamps, maybe shaped like a little circle, and they would kind of use these stamps and alternate them to create these elaborate designs. Many Lapita ceramics are large vessels thought to have been used for cooking, serving, and storing food. Some of the designs found on the Lapita pottery may be related to patterns seen in modern Polynesian tattoos and bark cloth. So, you know, we do, you know, when you go to Hawaii and some of these places, you see these really beautiful, elaborate tattoos. And so this might be the source of some of that imagery. In addition to vessels, a number of freestanding pottery figurines depicting anthropomorphic, that means human-like, and zoomorphic, animal-like, subjects have been unearthed at Lapita sites as well. And here, in addition to the repetition of these sort of design patterns, you also see a human face represented as well. So this kind of stylized human figure is something that they were exploring too. So this is the last image we'll be studying in our prehistoric unit. In summary, prehistoric works of art have the power to amaze and intrigue viewers in the modern world, even though so little is known about their original intention, creation, or meaning. The creative impulse exists with the earliest of human endeavors, and so hopefully that's something that you'll carry away from studying this unit. As is evidenced by the cave paintings from Lascaux and sculptures such as the anthropomorphic stele. The first type of construction, the post and lintel method, was developed during the Neolithic period to build monumental structures like Stonehenge. So we see this development from cave paintings and then small portable sculptures to larger architecture. And so we do see this development, and we do see how art changes both in terms of its functionality as well as perhaps its intention or its expression. So I hope you've enjoyed it. In class, we'll be doing some activities and doing some informal discussions on these pieces. Our next unit is going to be dealing with African art or Egyptian art. I haven't decided yet. Stay tuned.